The first time Karen parked her shiny white SUV on my farm, I honestly thought she was lost. Out here, a mile past the gravel road and 3 miles from anything that looks like civilization, you don't just accidentally pull onto someone's land. But that morning, with the sun climbing over the hay fields and the mud still wet from last night's storm, I saw that SUV sitting dead center in my lower field like it paid rent. I stepped off the tractor, boots sinking into the mud, and there she was, blonde hair, bright green blazer, city shoes already ruined, storming toward me like I was the one trespassing on her property. She jabbed a finger at me, yelling about how this land was part of the HOA jurisdiction, and how parking here was authorized because of some imaginary overflow parking rule. I swear she said those exact words. I just blinked at her. HOA? Out here? The nearest neighborhood was 5 miles away. The nearest Starbucks was a lifestyle away. But she kept going, ranting about property committees, community guidelines, and how she'd file a complaint if I didn't fix the mud that got on her tires. That's when it clicked. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't an accident. This woman was on a whole different planet. I told her, calm as I could, that this was a working farm. My land. Private property. Not a parking lot. But she rolled her eyes, hopped back into her SUV, and sped off, ripping deep trenches into the field I had spent 2 weeks grading. And man, that was only day one. The second time she parked there, she positioned her SUV even deeper in the mud, right next to the irrigation ditch. She strutted around like she was at some HOA budget meeting, snapping photos of my land, threatening to report me for unsafe terrain. By the third time, I wasn't patient anymore. She parked there deliberately, purposefully, and every time she ruined my field a little more, and my mood a lot more. I asked her why she kept coming back. She shrugged and said, because it's closer to my house than the HOA parking lot. Her house was not closer. Her house wasn't even visible. Her house wasn't even in the same zip code as my land. She parked here for one reason. She wanted control, and thought she had it. I warned her, told her clearly, you step on my land again, we're gonna have a problem. She smirked. One of those smug, HOA board president smirks that says, oh sweetheart, I run this place. And that was the moment I realized she wasn't going to stop. So, I decided to stop her my way. Now, out here, we don't always call the cops. We build things, fix things, and sometimes unleash things. And there's an old conveyor belt lift from my granddad's quarry days sitting rusted behind the equipment shed. Heavy, long, tilted, with frame rails strong enough to lift a truck. It wasn't much to look at, but I saw potential. Big, stupid, over-the-top potential. I greased the gears, reinforced the joints, welded a lifting hook, added a pulley system with chains thick enough to tow a barn. And just like that, the idea hit me. If she wanted to park her SUV in my field like it belonged there, then I'd send it somewhere else. Somewhere far. Somewhere airborne. And the best part? Out here on my land, there's no HOA, no nosy neighbors, no board members ready to write a strongly worded letter. Just open space, mud, sky, and a whole lot of justice waiting to happen. I waited. Tools ready. Camera ready. Plan ready. And Karen, well, she never disappointed. The fourth morning, like clockwork, that white SUV rolled down my dirt lane, tires splashing, bumper coated in dried mud from the last visit. She swung it right into the same spot she always took, my lower field, like a queen claiming land. She got out, staring at her phone, totally clueless. I stepped out with a smile she didn't trust. She asked what I was laughing at. I just pointed at her SUV, at the chains, at the old metal lift towering above it like a medieval trebuchet ready to launch a car straight into the next county. She opened her mouth, and part one ends right there, because that scream, that look on her face when she realized what was about to happen, that was worth the wait. And trust me, Karen froze in place like her brain blue-screened. Her eyes bounced from the chains hooked under her SUV to the giant rusted conveyor belt crane looming above it. Mud splashed around her expensive shoes as she stomped toward me, hands flailing in full HOA rage mode. She screamed that I had 5 seconds to detach her property. I told her she had 1 minute to leave my property. She didn't. Of course she didn't. So I pulled the lever, and that hoist cranked to life like a dinosaur waking up from a 100-year nap. The chains tightened, the hooks groaned, and that SUV, her precious, spotless, HOA Princess ride, slowly lifted off the ground. She shrieked so loud I'm pretty sure the cattle stampeded 5 miles away. The front tires left the mud first, then the back, then the whole SUV dangled in the air, dripping mud like some kind of off-road chandelier. She yelled about calling the police. I pointed to the private property. Trespassers will be yeeted sign I'd painted just for the occasion. She said that wasn't legally binding. I said neither was parking on my land. By the time her SUV was hanging completely clear of the field, she was losing her mind. Arms waving, blazer flapping, hair sticking to her face. She slipped in the mud twice trying to run under it and stop the operation. I had to hold in a laugh. And then, the moment of truth. I shifted the conveyor angle, cranked the pulley, and aimed it at the only thing a farmer can truly rely on to solve a suburban problem. Open sky. Her SUV swung forward, chains tight, engine dripping mud, sunlight hitting it just right, like fate itself approved of what was about to happen. She yelled, "You wouldn't dare." I grinned. "Oh, I dare." I pulled the final release. The chains dropped, the counterweight snapped, and her SUV launched. Launched. That thing flew like a muddy white missile, arcing across the field, flipping once, twice, spinning through the air like the world's most expensive fidget toy before crashing straight into a giant patch of soft dirt near the far fence line. The ground shook. A flock of birds evacuated the county. Karen screamed as if the world ended. I just stood there with my cowboy hat tipped back, arms crossed, laughing so hard my ribs hurt. She stood there drenched in mud, mascara running, screaming about lawsuits, damages, HOA regulations, and something about endangering luxury property. I let her rant, let her slip, let her stomp her way toward her very airborne SUV. By the time she reached it, the car was half buried in soft dirt, perfectly intact but looking like it got drafted into a monster truck rally. She tried to open the door, it wouldn't budge. She tried pushing it, didn't move an inch. She whipped around and shrieked, "You're paying for this." I smiled. "I've got the whole thing recorded." Her face went pale. She sputtered, You can't post that." "Ma'am," I said with the calm of a man who has won. "You parked on private property 4 times. You trespassed. You ignored warnings. And now you're mad at the consequences." She fell silent. For the first time ever silent. I handed her a shovel. She didn't take it. So I left her standing there screaming at an SUV half buried in my dirt while I walked back to the barn, tipped my hat, and called my buddies to come watch the replay over barbecue. The next morning, the SUV was gone. She must have hired a tow truck and a therapist. And she never came back. Not once. My field healed. My peace returned. And the HOA? They tried sending me a letter. I mailed it back with one sentence. "Not in the HOA. Not your problem. Stay off my land." Funny thing is, they listened. Karen didn't. But after that, she didn't have a choice. Because nothing, and I mean nothing, makes a Karen rethink her life choices faster than watching her own SUV launch across a farm like it's auditioning for a Fast and Furious reboot. And that's how rural justice works.